So I'm trying to understand about peace and what peace is, and whether peace is okay or whether peace is cowardly. And 2 or 3 days ago I recorded a few videos around this idea of peace on a personal level in this world that is not so peaceful. And then after those videos, before I've posted them, there's been a stabbing in Ireland, and a teacher and 2 young children, 5 and 6, all female, have been attacked by a man with a knife on the street outside a Gaelic school, outside an Irish-speaking school, right in the heart of the inner city of Dublin, on the north side. And the police and the security and the surveillance, the cameras, the tracking, the tracing, none of that was able to stop the attack from becoming lethal, because some people got involved who were there, who were decent people, who jumped in the moment with instinct and disarmed the guy and knocked him out until authorities did come and the man is arrested. And the children and the woman are rushed to a hospital, and the news breaks out in social media, quickly followed by the news coming out in mainstream media. And then the same as ever, it's the management of the news. So that at this stage I know very little more than I first heard, despite spending a whole 30 hours or whatever a little bit obsessing over trying to understand what's happening. And I don't have access to all the mega data that's on the Facebook and all social media combined and all the phones. I don't have the kind of intelligence gathering capacity that governments and corporations who own the software that runs in all of our devices, that owns the infrastructure that spies upon its civilians, populations. Like any other monkey fool out there with a mobile phone, I'm able to gather intelligence by looking at my own silly Facebook feed, out of my own friends and friends of friends, and friends of friends of friends of friends, I suppose, by association, who are posting stuff. And I'm knowing that no new information is really being released. And I'm looking at the build-up of images from what's called the left and what's called the right, joining the dots, filling in the colours of the black and white, and coming to 2 opposite conclusions of what's happening. And yeah, a lot of people comment that their heart goes out to those poor little children, but right on the back of that is the belief about why it happened, and the colouring in of all the things that were already wrong. This is an example of how wrong they were. And basically the anti-fascists are afraid that the fascists are going to use this knife attack against these young females in broad daylight outside a school to benefit their political beliefs of their version of fascism. The far right and the far left are both using this to make their point that they've always been making, to counteract the argument that the opposite has always been making. And all the while, as so-called democracy, so-called nations, so-called countries, so-called corporations, if truth be known in international law, these corporations just use the left and right as 2 steps, 2 feet marching. And whether it's left or right, the corporations and nations are still marching towards their Armageddon, their monopoly, their whatever word you want to use, their control system, their bigger picture, their political class information that they're privy to that the poor people who merely vote have no idea about. And the strange thing to me is that the word fascist surely is to do with states. It's not, individuals aren't fascists. Fascism is an idea of state. So two sets of people throwing the same stone at each other, calling each other fascists. Those two sets of people have been set against each other by the state. Anyway, I've written a lot about it today, so I'm going to just put this small little video with what I've written. I don't need to try and wreck my head putting things into words that are so difficult to put into words. But the upshot of what I'm working out from all of my watching things yesterday, just confirming my belief that I already had before yesterday. Why do inner city people riot and burn down their own infrastructure? Attack shops in their own streets? Why does that happen? And the fact is that the riot didn't happen in Dublin because those people were all paid to riot, and it didn't happen because those people were all racists. It didn't happen for any particularly simple reason. It happened because for generations the inner city people are second-class citizens in their own city. The inner city people are ill-educated and older generations. In the sense of, to live in the inner city, you've probably been there since the city was a small town, genetically. So you've had everybody coming to town and taking over your town. And you're getting suppressed by each new set of invaders. And so whenever the inner cities got filled with drugs like heroin in the 80s, those people who live in the inner cities are heavily repressed people on an epigenetic level, and on a chemical level, and on an economic level. There's an inherent guilt that the invader must have towards the people he's treated like animals. So all that denial gets poured onto the inner city people. And sometimes they boil over and just destroy stuff. Because they see everyone else getting the benefit. And they feel themselves that they're not getting the benefit. And that the world is perverse, that they're said to be benefit scroungers when they don't really get the benefit. Everyone else is living high on the hog and they're living in relative poverty. Because if you're from the inner cities, it's pretty impossible to get yourself a blue-collar job just because of your accent and the look on your face. Kind of thing. So to call inner city people far-right, fascist, racists is to totally misunderstand what it is that they're even arguing about, because you just never listen to them, because you consider them to be inferior people. And when things like the riots happen, the word scumbag gets thrown around all over the place. So, civilized, so-called moderate people want to have a look at why they so easily call inner city people scumbags. What are you not listening to about why these people are scumbags? Because maybe that's going on beneath your conscious level. But maybe with conscious self-examination you might get to understand why your countries are in the states they're in. Anyway, bye.